Okay. First of all, will be any conflicts of interest?
Are we doing the paper for the photograph of Warren Century Board?
For the...
Yeah, that's my conflict.
Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? No other conflicts of interest? Any apologies? Apologies from Bex Johnson. The big move. Craig move. I'll second. All in favour? Thank you. No late items. And first of all, now I'll ask Kim to introduce a new member of the staff to the...
Thank you, Gary. So I'd just like to introduce Leanne Corona here, who is our Pō Ahuria Māori, which is our iwi partnership manager. So started with us this week. So kia ora and welcome.
Welcome. Okay, we go straight into reports for decision, and on page 6 is the adoption of the Revenue and Finance Policy Consultation Document and supporting information. And David, are you going to introduce this?
Can we wish it? Yes. The council has workshopped over the last 3 months the revenue and financing policy, working through the requirements of the Local Government Act, Section 101(3), which requires every activity of the council to be considered in terms of how it can be funded. So the funding can be from user charges or rates or a number of other sources. Development contributions is one of them. In terms of capital funding, it could be from depreciation funds that have been accumulated from previous revenue or from loan funding. So the process of deciding on every activity that council provides, and there's 40 of those activities that we've identified, has been worked through over the last 3 months, and what we have in front of us today in terms of consultation material and a draft policy is the sum of all that work. And the previous policy has been used in previous years, and what we've done is consider whether the policy is still fit for purpose and made changes where the council has decided it's needs tweaking, needs changing, and can be updated. So the consultation material focuses on the changes from the previous policy, and that some of those result in changes to individual properties rates, and the consultation material shows that as best we can, identifying what the decisions to change the policy result in the impact on a property's rates. So rates, revenue and user pays revenue are the two big areas where the council has focused, and it's looking for user pays funding to increase as well as rates being altered between different properties. We have supporting policy staff with us in attendance today. So any other questions that the elected members may have, clarifications on where we've got to in the process and whether you agree with the way the consultation material has been worded, and if you see any tweaks or changes to that before we go out to consultation on Friday.
Thank you, Doug. Karen, did you want to say anything at all? No. Okay. Any questions? Councillor Goodwin.
Do I have to stand?
Yes.
Yeah. I just wonder, David, if you could talk us through, because I know you're so right about the way we have to consider everything in a very prescribed way, but nonetheless, when the revaluation comes out, I have seen councils respond to major changes. So can you tell us when the next valuation comes out, is question one. And question two is, on an annual plan basis, is it correct that we can, make little changes to some of these things?
The revaluation is being worked on at the moment. I believe it's 2 weeks away from going to the Office of the Valuer General for his consideration of the validity of the information. It'll be released to us either the last week of November, as I understand it, for us to assess the impacts, and it will be notified to property owners in early December for then a period of objection through to mid-January. So the council does have the ability to reconsider the policy in light of new valuations, and there will always be changes in rating based on the valuation changes, policy changes and the budget changes. So the picture in an LTP in terms of the impact on people's rates is quite complex. So that valuation information is the next step in the process, but the policy changes is the step that we're considering at the moment.
I suppose my only slight concern is that we've done this work, the valuations come out in the new year, publicly notified, and quite possibly, we've all seen it in the past, could influence people's attitude to this policy. If there's a strong shift one way or the other, I'm just wondering, is it possible to delay the consultation on this until those figures are out? So I just know that that can influence discussion a lot.
The consultation on this needs to be done, regardless of the valuation impacts.
It's just the timing.
Well, no, there isn't the timing between the valuation information being available and the LTP document being produced in March. So the timing is good now for these changes in this policy. The valuation information will be incorporated into the LTP document. Now I've lost what your second question was.
That was just about varying it through the annual plan process.
Oh, yes, there is the opportunity.
Some change will trigger consultation.
Yes, the opportunity in the LTP to confirm these changes or make other changes. But then each annual plan year there is the ability to make minor changes to a revenue and financing policy without full consultation.
Thank you, David. Any further questions? Councillor Bowyer.
Just under the recommendations, number 3, it says delegates authority to the Chief Executive to approve minor edits of publication. What constitutes a minor edit? Is this wording or is this just the ability to change the percentage?
Just respond to that. So it's non-substantive changes, so it'll be edits, it will be typos, something that doesn't change the meaning, so it certainly won't be percentages.
Any further questions? Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 6? Moved Councillor Lennox, seconded Councillor Nelson. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. I just want to thank the staff for all their hard work around this review. I also want to just speak to the fact that myself and along with others elected here today, we campaigned on fairer rates for all and making changes to a policy that we're going to make common sense. I know that every individual won't be happy, but I sort of believe that the community can be rest assured that your elected councillors have worked really hard at this task to get the balance right. I personally campaigned on drilling down the detail of the allocation of rates, especially for our rural community members. And I believe as a council, through the discussions we've had and the workshops we've had, that we've actually been able to help that area for them quite a lot, which is great. But yeah, I just want the community to know that, yeah, not everyone's going to be happy, but I think we've done a lot of work around this. There's been a lot of discussion, and it's been worked through in a really well way. So you should feel confident that what we're presenting to you is good for everyone. All right?
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion? Councillor Helena?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say I think the consultation document is a well-written document, so I compliment the staff for developing that. There might be a couple of typos in there, but I think it's very clear. And I think what we've tried to do is to make the process fairer, or I guess more equitable. So where someone benefits and user benefits, where possible, we've tried to increase user charges. And where everybody shares in a service, we've tried to promote the uniform charge. And I think it's a good principle to work on. There's probably some tweaks. A little concern is the impact it's going to have on the low-value homes, where their rates is a very small rise. But I think across the board, it's come out really positive. So,
Any further discussion? Councillor Tuta?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to support Councillor Lennox and Councillor Helena, but I'd also like to, on my own account, thank the staff for what we've put in, and also thank you for giving an alternative copy that our public can photocopy of much more easily this time around. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuta. Any further discussion? There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion moved by Councillor Lennox, seconded by Councillor Nelson. The recommendations on page 6. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? And I'd just like to say to David and to everybody involved, Jenny, everybody involved in the bringing this to us. It's been a great process, really. It's been a long, drawn-out process, but I think, as Councillor Lennox said, we've really worked hard to come up with the best result for the highest number of people, really. And so I'm very pleased. The thing I would say too at this stage to the public is that this is a consultation document. So you have every opportunity now to, if you don't like it, to let us know and let us know why you don't like it. So I would urge the public, if you are unhappy about anything, to make sure you submit. Thank you. We'll then move on now to page 72, which is the Crown funding for Wairarapa Moana Natural Resources Committee, and Karen Yates.
Thank you, Worship. So this report is to seek agreement from Council to pull the funding that we've received from the Crown. And we received that to support our representation on the Committee for Natural Resources. That's to develop the Natural Resources document for the Ruamahanga River catchment. Te Rohe o Rongokato Joint Redress Act provides joint redress to Wairarapa, iwi, Rangitani o Wairarapa and Katinunu ki Wairarapa for historic claims. And the Act, part of the Act is to set up the Wairarapa Moana Statutory Board, and the committee is a committee of that board with a specific responsibility to develop the natural resources document. And we have one representative sitting on that committee, not on the board itself, but on the committee because it is that broader Ruamahanga River catchment. We've received Crown funding as a contribution really for us to be able to participate in that committee. We've received a letter from Greater Wellington Regional Council asking that we consider to pull that funding that all of the members, all of the council members have received, and in a way that's going to be most efficient in the administration of that committee. So officers do recommend that in order to gain those efficiencies, it's a good idea if council wants to pursue that, but there should be some conditions around transferring the funding, and those are identified there, particularly that funding is ring-fenced to support our participation in the committee, which is what it was received for. I do have an update that I will need to seek amendment to that resolution. I've spoken to my colleagues at Greater Wellington, and there was a bit of a misunderstanding. They do not propose to hold that funding. They're actually the interim secretariat at the moment, and they will be going through a process of transferring the secretariat. So I suggest at the moment we leave that information blank, so that we change the resolution to that the council agrees to pull the 179,350 Crown funding rather than transfer to the Greater Wellington Regional Council. Happy to take any questions.
Right, any questions? Councillor Helena.
Who will be the holder of the funds, sorry?
That is yet to be determined. My understanding it was going to be Greater Wellington, but it's not at the moment. So it will be the new secretariat when those arrangements are put in place. So really, what we're asking for from council today is to agree to pull it, and when that secretariat is set up, then we will transfer that funding to the secretariat. But it will be on those conditions that it is for the Minor Statutory Board committee to develop that plan and for our participation.
And we'll have the opportunity to say yes or no to that, whoever's the holder of that fund.
Not at this point, no, because if we are going to pool it, it would make sense that it goes to the secretariat so that they actually administer all of the committee, because they will be the secretariat for the committee. So the benefits that we would get from pooling that funding is that we as councils don't have to individually support that committee member, and the secretariat will be able to do that.
Certainly support the principle, I just wasn't sure who was going to be the fund holder. My other question is the whole purpose of that fund to create the framework?
So the framework is being set up under the Act. The committee is responsible for developing the natural resources document itself. So that will cover the whole of the catchment area. So it's going to be a very significant document. It's very important, and it's going to take a number of years to develop.
Any further questions? No further questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendation, which now is in one, is agrees to pull the 1,950 Crown funding, and with A and B still in there. So anybody prepared to move that? Move Councillor Lennon, seconded Councillor Goodwin. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, we then move to page 78, the Wire Rapper Class 4 Gambling and Standalone TAB Venues Policy. Karen, you have another crack.
I'd like to hand over to our policy advisor, Stephanie, and Tanya, if you'd like to come up as well.
So this paper provides an update on the gambling policy review now that the draft policy and statement of proposal for community consultation has been considered by all three councils. So you'll recall that that's a joint policy, and the Wire Policy Working Group was delegated authority to support the review and report back to council. So this paper talks through where each council has landed. So you'll note that South Ōrāpa and Carterton District Councils agreed to the Wire Policy Working Group recommendations as they were presented, and you'll recall that you had that one difference when you considered it around the more restrictive policy consultation around the relocation of gambling venues. Now, given you weren't aware of where those other two councils landed when you made that decision, because you were first up, now's an opportunity just to give you that update, as well as provide an opportunity to reconfirm your decision now that you have that additional information. So the paper really provides sort of two options now for progressing the review, given that we've landed in slightly different places. The first would be that you decide today, now that you know where everyone is, where everyone's at and what they want to consult on, that you agree to consult on that joint and common policy. If you chose to do that, the review would proceed through to community consultation, and throughout that consultation we would seek feedback on that more restrictive policy option that councillors first considered. And then when it gets to the Waiaka Policy Working Group, they would deliberate on that and make recommendations back on a final policy. We would just need to confirm with South Waiaka and Masterton on the consultation dates, given there has been that little bit of delay, but we're hopeful that that could occur pretty soon, so sooner rather than later. If you wanted to maintain your current position and reconfirm that decision to consult on a more restricted policy, the recommended process from here is for us to get the Waiaka Policy Working Group back together, since not all of their recommendations were agreed to in full, and then they could consider next steps and come back to the three councils. So we've outlined in there some of the implications from timeframes for that option, just noting that that would extend the review further in 2024. We've talked in the paper a little bit about some of the advantages we see for having that common joint policy, but we've also included some information around where the social impact assessment highlighted that maybe a strengthened policy for Masterton could be supported, and that's something that you might like to consider. So today we're really just seeking your direction on the next step. Yeah, unless there's any questions, I think.
Right, any questions for Steph? Yeah, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you for your report. So South Waiaka and Masterton Council getting together to discuss things from our perspective. Are they looking at changing their position? Is that being considered?
No, that would be, if you wanted to have a separate position, we'd go back to the Waiaka Policy Working Group, and that would be the vehicle for bringing the three councils back together to consider that.
So they haven't got the same sort of option on the table for them in a council meeting?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Helena.
Yeah, again, thank you for your report. I'm just wondering, from your perspective, Tanya and Steph and Manager Yates, what's the issue around a joint policy with a regional variation?
There's no issue. There is a preference that we have, as we've identified in the paper, that there is a common policy, because people, as you know, work across the whole of the Waiaka, and so we try to have as common policies as possible. That's not to say that we can't have regional variations, as you know, within our district plan that we do, if we feel like it's really necessary. Just to clarify around that, not giving South Wye the opportunity. Of course, it really was just a matter of timing that we went first, that then South Wye and Carterton councils didn't need to consider our position, because you know that the report was in front of them in a different way. But as Steph has said, that we would go back to the policy working group just to clarify where to from here.
Yes, Councillor Goulden.
Yeah, I suppose
Question.
that the question is what I think the minimisation of harm to the community, which is one of the key parts of our policy, it's just a question why you know, it could have been enhanced more, because to my understanding of the word minimising, if we don't take option 2, well, we're not minimising at a greater level than we have done for years. We're just leaving it the same. And so I would have thought it's black and white that to minimise is the last tool left in the box, and we actually have to use it, because otherwise we're not minimising.
Sorry, Councillor, was there a question? It's entirely it's entirely a policy decision, and we've laid out what the pros and cons are of both approaches. So you're entitled to have that, of course.
Councillor Bay.
My question is, what would be the point of us having a more restrictive policy than our neighbours? Because we already, in our current policy, is more restrictive than Palmerston North and Hutt City. we already are doing enough to minimise social harm. So again, why would we have this policy more restrictive?
I have a similar response. I think these are statements that might want to go to the discussion.
Sorry, they're probably statements, and I think that's for your deliberations, I would suggest. Thank you.
Is it a question, Councillor Goodwin, or are we getting the discussion?
Well, he asked the question, and I just thought it would be helpful if I provided the answer. In the Porirua are pursuing this policy. Western Bay of Plenty also.
They're not our neighbours.
And, does that make a difference?
Okay. Okay, we've got the recommendations on page 78. Now, I need somebody to move either or.
I'd like to move option 2. Option 2, that the alternative option, reconfirm the decision we made.
So you're doing the or.
Yeah, the all.
The or.
The or.
Okay, you're moving that. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tuta. Okay, now open for discussion. Any discussion? Councillor Helena.
I understand the desire in terms of process that all three councils are on the same page. But if we're trying to genuinely trying to reduce social harm, even us going the next step, it's probably not going to make a huge difference. The way we reduce the impact of problematic gambling is reduce access to it, particularly by people who, I guess, have an addiction, but not just those who have an addiction, those who might develop an addiction. So in my view, anything we can do to make gambling or put obstacles in the way of people who might become problematic gambler in terms of the impact on their own lives and their families' lives, then we should do that. So I fully support the motion, and I hope that the focus of reducing problematic gambling and taking steps to do that is greater than the benefit of all three councils being on the same page in terms of their policy.
Thank you, Councillor Helena. Councillor Gould. You stand, please.
Okay.
Any Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. Just echoing Councillor Helena's thoughts, and I've got no interest whatsoever in what other councils are doing. We're doing next. I'm just interested in what we can control here, and I sort of yes.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
I support them.
Any further discussion? I'm actually against the motion personally. I believe that it's not council's job to be the policeman and think like this. I believe that sure there's a gambling problem in New Zealand, but as I said at the last meeting, I believe that 95% of people who, or probably a high percentage of people who gamble do so for good social reasons. They enjoy it, it's part of their lives, and a lot of this money does come back to the community. So I believe the policy is restrictive enough as it is now. So I will be voting against it, but I appreciate the words of what others say. Councillor Loya?
For me, I think it's too restrictive. You probably bring that up. It's been through the Wairaka Policy Working Group. It was thrashed out in that, and I believe we're being a little bit too dictatorship on this. For me, we're looking into people's lives here.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon.
I'll move the motion in a minute, but I would just
motion's already been moved.
I would like to just say that this is putting a policy out to the public to comment on, and it is doing the only legal thing we can do to try and minimise the harm. It's not going to get rid of it, but it will make a difference over time. So that's why I'm supporting it.
My argument with that would be that we were already doing that with the first motion, but this is making not a lot of difference. Anyway, okay, I'm certainly willing to put the recommendation, which is the recommendations on page 78 on the board to reconfirm resolution on the 2380 and direct officers to reconvene the WPWG, to consider next steps and make recommendations back to the Wairarapa District Councils. Move Councillor Goodwin, seconded Councillor Tutor. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is passed.
Division?
No.
I can call it.
Oh,
Just might as well write it
okay, if you put your hands up if you're in favour.
down. No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. 1, 2, 3.
It just means
Thank
you
you.
record
Thank
the
you,
names.
Councillor Goodwin. That brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you very much for attending, people, and we'll go another day. Do we have the clear here now?